Welcome to another edition of Joint Endeavors. Now we focus on the joint exercises for the spine. A couple things to make note of is that when we're doing the joint exercises for the cervical spine, it's important that you keep the shoulders and the torso still and quiet. When we're working on the thoracic and lumbar segments, it's important that not only that you keep the hips grounded, whether you're seated or standing, the hips remain immovable so that we can focus on mobilizing the vertebrae segments of both the thoracic and lumbar spine. We'll begin first with the cervical spine and rotation. Take a moment to shift your awareness and your breath as if you're breathing directly into the cervical spine, creating space and length between the vertebrae. Inhaling deeply. We begin by turning and looking to one side, pausing briefly to fully exhale and gently lengthen and stretch. Inhaling deeply back to center. We're going to turn now and look to the other side, and once again, pause for a light to moderate stretch as we exhale. Moving side to side slowly, letting your breath set the pace. Once more to either side. Coming back to center. Here we'll move to lateral flexion of the cervical spine, where we bring our ear to our shoulder. Again, pausing at either side to gently lengthen and stretch the muscle tissues of the neck. Beginning with the breath, inhaling deeply. And as we begin to exhale, we're going to bring one ear to one shoulder. Inhaling back to center. And now bring the other ear to the other shoulder. Inhaling and exhaling. Once more to either side. Coming back to center. It should be noted that with lateral flexion, there are two variations that we can include to help isolate the muscles where tension is most present. The first one is that as you bring your ear to your shoulders, you can rotate your gaze to look down. Or as you bring your ear to your shoulder, you can rotate your gaze to look up. Both of these movements will help you to better isolate the muscle fibers that are holding the most tension in the lateral plane of your cervical spine. Next, we move to forward flexion and extension of the cervical spine. Beginning with the breath, inhaling deeply. And as we exhale and lower our chin to our chest, we let our shoulders get heavy. Once again, pausing to fully exhale and gently stretch. Inhaling deeply back to center. And as we raise our chin toward the ceiling, we let our shoulders get heavy once again, pausing to gently lengthen and stretch. Once more, down and up. Coming back to center. From here, we'll move to what's called neck retraction. A couple of visualizations. One, imagine that your ears are on a set of rails and they're sliding back and forth. The other visualization is imagine placing a finger on your nose and pushing your head straight back. And then from the center position, gently grabbing your nose and pulling your head straight forward. So you want to avoid pitching your head up and down during this movement. Range of motion isn't great, but you should feel a nice stretch in the back of your spine as you shift both backwards and forwards. Inhaling deeply. As we begin to exhale, imagine you've placed a finger on your nose and you're pushing your head straight back. Inhaling back to center. And now imagine that you've grabbed your nose between both fingers and you're pulling your head straight forward. Inhaling and exhaling. Inhaling and exhaling. Once more, backwards and forwards. Good. Coming back to center. We'll finish the neck work with circles. Imagine that you're drawing a circle on the ceiling with the crown of your head. We inhale for one half a circle, exhaling for the second half. When you're ready, start with a small circle in one direction. Moving slowly. And then if you wish, you can begin to increase the size of the circle. There shouldn't be any pain here. Once more in this direction. And then when you're ready, go ahead and switch directions. Once more. Good. From here now we'll move down to the thoracic and lumbar segments of our spinal column. And take a moment to shift your awareness, focus and breath now on these regions. Imagine as you inhale that you're breathing directly into your spinal column. We'll begin with rotation, bringing our arms up to a position called immortal, holding the post. Relaxing the shoulders, dropping the elbows. Inhaling deeply. As we begin to exhale, we're going to turn and rotate the torso to one side. Pausing briefly to fully exhale and gently stretch. Inhaling back to center. Turning now and rotating to the other side. And once again, pausing to exhale and gently lengthen and stretch. Moving side to side at the pace of your breath. Allowing for a light to moderate stretch on either side. Once more to either side. Coming back to center, relaxing and releasing your arms. It should be noted there are two other variations that we can add to spinal rotation, and these involve counter rotation. In this case, as we rotate our torso to the left, you can look to the right. And then the same thing on the opposite side. As you rotate your torso to the right, you can look to the left. Coming back to center. The other counter rotation variation is pushing one hip back as we rotate in the opposite direction. So as an example, as we rotate to the left, we can press our right hip back slightly. As we come back to center and now rotate the torso to the right, we can push the left hip back. Inhaling back to center and relaxing. Both can add a little bit more movement as well as provide a little bit more information about what's going on with your spine as far as mobility and movement goes. Next, we'll move to forward flexion and extension, and this exercise is called spinal cord breathing. It can be done from a seated or a standing position. We'll begin by bringing our arms up, inhaling deeply. As we begin to exhale, we drop our chin to our chest. We engage our abdominals to round our spine as we bring our forearms together in front of us. Pausing to exhale and stretch. Inhaling back to center. We raise our gaze toward the ceiling, extend our elbows back, and then using the paraspinal muscles, we gently arch our spine. Inhaling and exhaling. Inhale and exhale. Once more forward and back. Coming back to center, relaxing, releasing the arms. Next, we'll now move on to mobilizing the junction between the lumbar and thoracic spine. We begin by placing our hands on our ribs to provide a guide. And then on the next exhale, shifting your rib cage to one side, making sure that your hip on the opposite side doesn't lift up. Coming back to center, and now shifting your rib cage to the other side. Moving slowly side to side, allowing your core muscles to do the work. Once more to either side. Good. From here now we'll focus on shifting the rib cage back and forth. When you're ready, we begin to engage the abdominals, shifting the rib cage back. Coming back to center, and then shifting the rib cage forward. Once more back and forth. Coming back to center. From here now we focus on now creating circles with the rib cage, beginning by shifting our rib cage to one side, shifting the rib cage back, shifting the rib cage to the other side, and then shifting the rib cage forward. Gradually beginning to round the corners, turning into more of a circular movement, hitting each of the 4 points. Once more in this direction. And then when you're ready, you can go ahead and reverse direction. Once more. Good. We'll finish the spine work with T side bending. We'll rise up, bring our arms out into a T position. Inhaling deeply. As we exhale, we're going to lean to one side, reach and extend toward the ceiling, gently lengthening and stretching as we exhale. Inhaling deeply back to center, and now leaning to the other side, and once again, reaching and extending, gently stretching as we exhale. Now we have the top hand, which grazes past the ear and reaches to the wall. Now we add the bottom hand, which pushes down and across. Once more to either side. Coming back to center. This concludes spinal mobilization for this edition of Joint Endeavors. Thank you for your time.